The following is a presentation of Tuning into Sci-Fi TV, the viewer's guide to genre television.
Hey everyone, welcome to a bonus podcast for Game of Thrones Season 5. I am Wendy Hembrock, and with me I am joined by most of the small council. Let's go around the table and introduce yourselves, everyone.
Hi, we do have a quorum, but barely. I am Jesse Jackson from Dallas, Texas, the master of backup recording.
Ooh, good one.
I'm Christine from Michigan, the mistress of correction and consistency.
And this is Shannon from Vancouver, Washington, and not feeling particularly masterful today.
Aww.
And I am Wendy, the mistress of moderation. So first I want to thank folks for feedback. We don't have any feedback this week. I'm kind of bummed. Hopefully our small council contest will inspire you guys. Maybe you're working hard on your entries, and that's why we haven't gotten any feedback yet. But we are running a contest from the Small Council with two awesome prizes. You can win the World of Ice and Fire History of Westeros book, which is a beautiful book all about the backstory to Game of Thrones, as it were. And you can win any single season of Game of Thrones on DVD or Blu-ray, valued up to $50, because we're opening this to anyone, anywhere in the world. And we also just need you to submit audio to us of any kind. So you can submit feedback, comments, theories. You can begin the first line of your epic novel that's set in Westeros. It's pretty wide open. We just want you to submit audio of about 90 seconds, no more than 2 minutes. Could be a comment, could be a question, but we just want to hear from you. And you have up until episode 9 to submit your entries. You can also submit more than one entry. They just have to be unique.
And if maybe you're thinking you don't want the prize, that's okay. I'll take it, and you can still submit your voice, because that would be awesome.
I agree. You can just go for it, right? That would be a lot of fun.
As somebody who owns all of those things that we've talked about thus far, it's definitely worth the time it takes to make a recording. That coffee table book is gorgeous, and the Blu-rays and DVDs are fascinating with lots of bonus features. So send us something.
Yeah, and it sounds like Christine will also maybe pay you $5 to be her proxy or something, or possibly loan you the book and the DVDs after she's done with them.
So does that mean she's a faceless man and, assuming another identity to enter the contest?
I wish.
I don't want to know about these things. This needs to be
I can do accents, but it kind of still sounds like me.
So now I just want to mention we got some links of note. The HBO Inside the Episode. We have the showrunners talking about a big meeting that happens in episode 7, The Gift, which is what we're going to be talking about. There's also kind of a dead theme going this week with the links. There's a interesting illustrated summary of the dead, and counting also counts who's been killing the most people. There's also it's called a beautiful death guide that comes from HBO. There's sort of these posters of, I would say, noteworthy deaths that have happened across the seasons. But also a website that has drawn the Game of Thrones characters as if they were Disney characters. There's more conversation about Sansa's marital rape and rape in general in Game of Thrones that had some interesting thoughts in it. And we talked about Jerome Flynn, who plays Bronn, had a backstory as a pop singer, and there's a link to some more of that.
Yeah, these are, as always, we appreciate you kind of putting everything together. I enjoyed the Inside episode. I really enjoyed the showrunners discussing the meeting of the two characters. And I had traveled last week to visit my mom, and so I was gone a week, so I had a week's worth of laundry, and then my wife was out of town this weekend, and so she is training for an Ironman, so I had so much laundry that I looked at the Beautiful Death Guide and I immediately got out because I knew I would spend about 3 hours just going through all these different links and reading this. So I went, okay, don't go through that rabbit hole. Don't go through that rabbit hole.
And I actually want to go through the rabbit hole. I just hadn't had time. I started working backwards through the links, and of course started with Jerome Flynn singing because I love his voice. I absolutely love his voice, and even did a little search of my own, hoping to get like a full song of The Dornishman's Wife by him, and all I was able to find was somebody editing together the two parts of the song that he's sung so far, which was still good. And then I started looking at the very long article about rape in Game of Thrones, and I thought seeing the length of it, I would get into that too long, didn't read mode, but I kept reading, and I didn't even get a chance to finish it before we started recording this. But if anybody out there has gotten into an argument about the Sansa and Ramsay scene, read this article. I don't care what side of the argument you are on, read this article. It is excellently written and makes very good points.
Yeah, there was a lot of controversy in the wake of that episode, and most of the takes were very anti the plot development and anti the way it was presented. There were a few from notable critics. I think Alyssa Rosenberg at the Washington Post and a couple other people understood the scene kind of, I think, the way the creators intended it. And this one is a little bit more that I think they actually call it a rebuttal or debunking of a lot of the arguments. So, it's fairly even-handed, and if you saw only one side of that argument or read too much about it, it does present another side. And Christine, I did see that Dornishman's Wife 2-part edit together, but it would be nice if
he did the whole
Bear
song
and the Maiden
rape.
Fair. Bear and the Maiden Fair and a couple of the others, Reigns of Castamere, you were able to find those as one. So if they haven't already, I certainly hope the Dornishman Wife makes it as a pop single to rocket up the charts.
I want him to sing every song from Game of Thrones. Just release an album.
I want that CD. Jerome Flynn sings the songs from Game of Thrones on K-Tel Records.
I bet that's coming.
That's right.
And now I want to see one of those traditional album commercials before it too.
With all the song titles scrolling across the screen.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep, that would be awesome. So let's jump into the episode. Credits wise, I did not see anything new this week. Did any of you guys?
Nope.
No
changes.
Yeah, no changes.
It's starting to get a little disappointing.
I know. Hoping for a surprise soon. So let's go around the table and do our quick, short minute overall impressions and ratings. And I'm going to start, and I'm going to give it a B+, mostly because it just felt like everyone's scenes were a little too short and didn't quite get enough progress, most notably in Dorne. I do like Bronn, but I actually felt almost everything that happened in Dorne this week was not purposeful to me. And I didn't also understand any of the rationale for what the sisters were doing in the jail in Dorne. But we had awesome progress in Meereen with Tyrion meeting Dany. A very actually nice, peaceful exit to Master Aemon, and some good character development on Sam. And we also had Cersei, the sparrows have come home to roost on Cersei. So that's why I'm only going B+, though. and I would give it, 7 poison antidotes.
So I saw what you did there. Sparrows coming home to roost. Very nice.
Thank you.
Yes, I love that. I like this episode a lot more than you did. In fact, I would say this is one of my favorite episodes, and I've actually watched it. I watched it last night when I got home from the convention, and then I watched it again today, and then I started watching it a third time, and nothing earth-shattering happens. I mean, no disrespect meant to the Maester dying, but I mean, but just for some reason, I felt like every scene was really well done, and there was a lot of things I liked a lot. This could be one of my favorite episodes of the season, and this could be because in Game of Thrones, rankings, a couple people got some happy endings. Like Brahm got a flash, and didn't die. He got to see a little bit of a show, and he ended up dying. And someone, complimented his singing. Cersei got what she shouldn't. She should be careful what you wish for. So, and in Game of Thrones, this is what we have to take for a happy ending. So I would give it 9 post-injury booty calls.
Yeah, I'm a little more with Jesse on this than Wendy. Bronn sings again. I seriously cannot get enough of it. Tyrion and Jorah get to Daenerys. Cersei finally gets what we all saw coming to her. Sam gets some. We even saw a couple of rooms at Dorne, which I had been asking for. Throw in some Varys and Arya, and it would have been the perfect episode, at least for me. So I give it 9 out of 10.
It's funny, when I watched this for the first time live Sunday, my feeling after it was over was I was kind of disappointed, and I thought this was like a C or a B minus. So then I let it sit with me for a little bit, and then rewatched it later that night, and now I think it's a pretty solid B. There was more going on than I originally thought there was, and like I always do, I try to look at the title and what it meant. And before the episode, I thought it might take place at Castle Black and involve a lot of politics with the wildlings, because the gift historically refers to, I think it was Brandon Stark's gift to the wildlings of like a land where they could settle. And it's called capital T, capital G, the gift. But they referenced that, but mostly it had a lot of people giving gifts. Like obviously the big one is Tyrion as the gift to Daenerys, but also the gift of the antidote to Bronn, and the gift of testimony, like Littlefinger giving a gift to Lady Olenna, and to High Sparrow to turn the tables on Cersei. So, and the gift of seeing Ghost again, which was always nice. So for me, it's a B.
Don't forget the gift Gilly gave to Sam.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big gift.
Well, and also Sam gives Jon Snow dragonglass as a gift.
Yes. Yep.
Oh, really good.
Sansa gives the gift of a candle that comes back. She also finds a gift of a pointy object that could be used for stabbing. Ramsay also gives her a gift of a flayed northerner that was not.
Was anyone else reminded of the scene with her and Joffrey where he showed her the heads on the wall?
Yes, yes, indeed. And remember, she was thinking about pushing him off the ledge. She was thinking about it, and the hound sort of pulled her back.
Unfortunately, Ramsay was on the ground for that one.
And Ramsay is continuing. I mean, he is more and more Joffrey every episode. Even the way he carries himself and his facial expressions. I mean, he has really stepped up as the villain we really, really hate, at least from my perspective.
I think he's much more rounded than Joffrey ever was or ever would have been. He's more balanced as a villain.
Yeah, there's a little more going on with his, psychopathy than Joffrey. Joffrey was always a shit from moment one, and he had his sadistic evil streak, but Ramsay is far more evil, and much more of a psychopath. But you also, maybe we spent more time with him where we get to see more of his character, but totally evil. But like you said, I think a little more well-rounded evil or well-depicted evil,
Well, I think
more
because
dimensional evil.
Joffrey was a narcissist primarily. I mean, that's where all of his stuff came from. And Ramsay is doing this. He has reasons. Like, he has a logic applied to this. You know, he thinks that flaying is the family tradition and he wanted his father's approval. So he's certainly a sadist, but he's more than that. So I agree. I think he has more definition and more complexity to him.
And one other point, I think he's smarter than Joffrey. I certainly despise him, and I can't wait for him to die. I do think he's very smart and really good at manipulating people, torturing people, and playing quote unquote the game.
Yeah, Joffrey was more of a because I said so, I'm the king, whereas Ramsay uses a lot of psychological and amoral tactics. I mean, just think back to how he broke down Reek and the going on the chase and letting him think he was a friend and then holding out hope and not really telling him anything required a certain level of cunning.
But I think he also is underestimating how effective torture can be, because he also gave Sansa a gift of information she didn't have about Jon Snow being the Lord Commander, which I think might give her hope that maybe she didn't have also. So it's interesting because I think sometimes he isn't all that smart because he thinks, oh, I've cowed everyone. So I think he has little loose lips with information sometimes that I don't know if his father would approve of him sharing necessarily.
Oh, good point.
But, and I hope that's his downfall, right, is boasting, because he was kind of doing it with Sansa, right? And he was thinking it was because he was about to show her that he had discovered the northern friend and the plot was undone. But, we'll see what actually happens now, whether Sansa sort of redoubles her efforts or finds another, she finds another way, or maybe even finds a way to sort of plant disinformation on Theon. But I liked how she tried to appeal to him as Theon again, but obviously she doesn't know what he's been through. So she underestimated the limits of what could change him. But she's in a bad place. So actually, let's go into talking about the highlights in particular in this episode. And for me, the highlight was definitely Tyrion and Jorah. And mostly, as you said, Jesse, there were some happy things that happened in this episode. Jorah bringing Tyrion to Dany was an accomplishment and a moment I was really looking forward to. I also loved the way that Tyrion was thinking on his feet to make sure that he got bought by the same guy who had bought Jorah. I loved how the auctioneer completely inflated Jorah's vast accomplishments with other people we've heard of. Like there was one point where he was referencing the guy from
Thoros of Myr.
Thoros of Myr with the flaming sword, and talking about he was Robert's second. It was like, that was Ned. So I love that. And then when Tyrion is trying to, file his way through his chains, and that massive guy comes along and looks like he could just, split him in two, and instead he frees him and he runs out. And I cannot wait to see that conversation that's coming.
Yeah, I mean, all of that was great stuff, and it was on my list of things to talk about. It just seemed, not only Tyrion talks so well. Last week we talked about how wonderful it was how he talked himself out of being killed, or and then uh, searched for the whatchamacallit merchant. I'll keep us clean. And now this time, oh, we're a partnership. I can fight. And he starts beating that guy to kind of
Yes.
prove his point, And
Yeah,
the guy's
he
like,
did.
he is funny. Yeah, I'll take him.
Yeah, you definitely stole my favorite scenes. Anything with Tyrion's going to be top on my list. But another thing I liked about that scene is the way Jorah looked when he walked up to Daenerys. He has this look of complete obsession with her. I mean, he looked borderline psychotic when he was able to take off his helmet and look her in the eyes. And I think that was a big turnoff for her. Like, she just wanted him taken away. She could see on his face how messed in the head he's gotten about her, and she doesn't even want to talk to him anymore. And if Tyrion hadn't run up at that moment, God knows what would have happened.
What's High Valyrian for stalker?
Exactly.
And Ian Glenn is just such a fantastic actor, and we all love his rich plummy voice. But in that scene, you guys are right, that he had such a look on his face of, yes, I accomplished it. I beat the hell out of all these guys without killing them. And then I've got something for you, and here I am, my queen, and all this red on his face, and longing and desire, and accomplishment. I've made it, and then her reaction to him just makes him crestfallen. And then
And he still
anything
called her
that
Khaleesi, even though the last time he did it, she told him not to call her that.
right, and anytime and I like being surprised, and we haven't gotten to in the books the Dany Tyrion thing, and now it's at hand. And to me, as good as it was to get us to that point, I'm super excited about having those two interact. I just, two of my favorite characters, and who desperately need what the other one can bring to the party. So.
Well,
Yes.
the other thing that was interesting about the Jorah fight was, one, he didn't actually kill anybody. He just incapacitated everyone. But up until that point, Dany was completely repulsed by what she was saying. And then he walks in and she stands up and she's very admiring of everything until he takes the helmet off. And she's like, whoa.
Most
So
definitely. And
that
that's the
was
thing.
also kind of a bitter pill for her. She was like admiring this person until she realized it was him.
And he was doing it because he could tell that she was repulsed by the killing. He went out there to show her, I know what you want, and I can give it to you.
Yes, exactly. So let's move on. Jesse, what's your highlight?
I'm gonna go with Sam's bravery and Ghost arriving in the nick of time. Mostly because we asked that question last episode. We said, hey, we haven't seen the direwolf in a while. And it was just, the whole story of Sam, he's alone, and he knows he's alone. He gets pointed out that he's alone, and what's the guy's name? I'm drawing a blank on Jon Snow's nemesis.
Oh, Sir
Alistair
Alistair
Thorne.
Thorne.
Yeah,
Thorne?
so
Dawn's from Arrow.
Yeah, it's my
Flash.
it's my duty to tell you, that you're making a bad decision, but he hasn't changed at all, and he's just like, oh, you're losing all your friends there, Tarly, and just happy. And so poor Sam, and then he gets the crap beat out of him by those two guys, and he gets up, and I don't know how he stood, but I was so proud of him. And then I'm like, I don't know how he's going to get out of this, but he is not going to. I mean, it's like, okay, you guys are going to wear yourselves out beating the crap out of me, so I got you right where I want you. And then when Ghost came, so it was, and then of course, he got a little something something. And like I said, these are small victories on this TV show. No one lives happily ever after. So I was like, yes, somebody who's trying to do the right thing, who's trying to be a good friend. And, I just was happy with that story altogether.
Oh, I think that's a happy ending for Sam. I think he could live happily till the day he dies, even if it's tomorrow, and be perfectly okay with that. I did really like how he stood up to them, even though he had no chance of doing anything but getting the living snot beat out of him. But he did it anyway. I almost wish that Ghost hadn't shown up to kind of save the day, because I wanted him to be able to do it on his own, or at least to I don't know, kind of pull a Wesley from Princess Bride and bluff them into thinking that he could take them. But I suppose this works out anyway. I mean, he's got the friendship of this wolf that everybody's afraid of, and that's pretty impressive too. Even, they don't believe that he killed a White Walker, so he's at least got this working for him.
Yeah, there was a nice moment, and I'm always pulling for Sam. He's a good guy and likes to use the power of his smarts. And there was a little Matt Murdock, for those of you that have watched Daredevil, there about being able just to take a god awful beating and against his better judgment get back up. So it was nice that it worked out for him. Thanks, Ghost, and thanks, Gilly.
Yeah, I definitely loved that Ghost came in and rescued them. I also really loved his sense of humor later when he's talking to Gilly, and he's like, yeah, I had them right where I wanted. They were just about to turn. The other thing I thought was interesting was she didn't actually get raped. Ghost stopped that from happening. And then when she actually is initiating sex with him, she's in the power position in that moment. And it was such a contrast to how we've seen sex so many other times in this show, where she's actually asking him, are you okay? Do you consent, basically? And he was completely vulnerable. I thought it was played really sweetly how she initiated him into sex. So I liked all that. And I also really liked the conversation they had with Master Aemon before he passed away, and Gilly realizing you're going to have to get ready to give your speech, and Sam sort of in denial about it. So I do completely agree, Christine. If tomorrow it all goes to crap, Sam will die happy.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, he is, and what I love is, they had talked about this, remember, last year when he said, technically, he had found this space in his vows, right, that said, if we're not, and I really good points, Wendy, that, she was the aggressor. She was asking him, she was taking lead, and it was a very sweet, very sweet intimacy. For a show that does a lot of sexposition and a lot of, obvious rapes and other things, this was very sweet. And I like I said, just everything about it was great.
Okay, Christine, then let's move on to your highlight.
Well, obviously, I really liked the Tyrion and Jorah stuff, so I'll just skip right past that. I really only have a couple of comments on other scenes that happened. I really liked that Dany acknowledged that being queen does not allow her to do whatever she wants. I thought that was a big bonus on her side. I mean, everybody's always wondering, is she going to turn into the crazy Targaryen, or is she going to be bloodthirsty? But she feels very strongly that just because she is queen does not mean she has the right to do anything she wants. She has to make compromises herself. And Dario even pointed out, well, then that makes you the only person in Meereen who is not free. And that is true. Rulers are not free. You can try to make your people free, but in doing so, you sacrifice your own freedom for them. And I really liked that. Another scene I really liked was the little sparring match that Lady Olenna had with the High Sparrow. Although I was surprised that she started her little battle trying to bribe him. I honestly thought she would go straight for Cersei in that whole regard, but apparently she starts with bribery, and I did not realize that about her.
Yeah, that's a scary thing. When she was feeling out the High Sparrow and trying to look for a weakness and couldn't find one because he's motivated.
He's so sincere.
Completely by faith, and that is scary, because the appeal of riches or power or sex or whatever, those are all just going to fall flat on him because he has what he wants. He has his faith in his holy mission, and then his part about we are many that was kind of haunting there at the end.
Yeah, I like that conversation a lot, especially when she tries to go for we'll starve you out. And he's like, you've never actually farmed. You're the one. He was almost calling her the 1% who is completely out of touch with the rest of the world, which I thought was really effective in getting at her. And it set up the scene with Littlefinger so well to just see how he's sort of pulling all these levers in the background too. And I definitely agree with the comment about Dany and then Dario telling her, well, eventually you either decide you're the butcher or the meat. And I just see things coming to an interesting head between his point of view and her approach to leadership once the fighting pits open, and where they're going to finally have a divide between those two characters.
Yeah, and I didn't understand his point about killing everyone. It's like, so what we should do is get all the smart people and let's kill them because, we don't want smart people. And I know that isn't what he meant, but that's what it kind of sounded like to me. But yeah, that was a good discussion, and him kind of, why would I be jealous? Okay, maybe I'm a little jealous. Really nice stuff.
I think he was more saying, kill everybody who disagrees with you, leaving only the people who agree with you. But, that won't work.
See,
yeah.
but,
Yeah, I interpreted it more as their threats, and you never found out who's actually behind this, but he called out her fiance as the one who's behind it.
Yeah.
So to me, it was really like, you just need to cut down all the tall poppies before they grow too high.
And I'm jumping out of order, but this is our twice in a row now Sports Night reference. Isaac taught us that if you're dumb, you surround yourself with smart people, but if you're smart, you surround yourself with smart people who disagree with you.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Once again, so he's not paying attention to the wisdom of Sports Night.
Well, he's also a sellsword, so his background probably is more rooted in action than in cunning.
Jesse, maybe you should sit him down and have him watch the show with you.
Absolutely. That would, what? How cool would that be, right?
But his point of view is highly representative of the experience of many people she's trying to rule.
Yeah, it is. I would say for me, we've already talked about a lot of things, so I'll just look at it as I love when the show puts two really good actors together and lets them do their thing. So in this episode, we had Lena Headey and Natalie Dormer, those scenes in the dungeon with Marjorie and Cersei. There was a great conversation. And Lena Headey, again, I can't say enough about her performance in this episode. So much on her face, and from the sincerity with Tommen to the antagonism and I've Got You with Natalie Dormer to her and Jonathan Pryce there at the end. Just a fantastic confrontation as she slowly but surely realizes the rug is about to get pulled out from under her. And then you had Jonathan Pryce and Dame Diana Rigg. Just watching two seasoned pros in one scene, poking and prodding and both trying to get the upper hand. Watching that was fascinating. We'll love to see that.
Yeah, I really loved the scene where she goes to see Marjorie, because then, she's in the same hole at the end of the episode. And she was playing it so much like, I've got everything I want. She was so smirking, and she had so much false sincerity. I love when Marjorie was calling her out as, you're just not that good of an actor. Not like me. and then when she goes to see the High Sparrow, and she has no idea what's coming, really until Loris walks in the room. And I love how, because we've been able to get
Lancel.
Thank you. We've been able to know Littlefinger's part in this. So it almost makes it even more delicious to see it happening, because we kind of know how he's sort of poked and prodded people to get things here as well.
Yeah, her eyes, when she's figuring out what's happening at the end, I totally agree with you, Shannon. The acting is just amazing. She's like, uh-oh, wait a minute. And then at the end, I love that, talk about unbowed and unbroken right at the end, when she's like, look at my face. Look at me. Look at me. This is the last you will see. Really nice. Now, I'm curious to know, what do you think Littlefinger's long goal is? Do you think he's just doing all this to just make things at King Landing as crazy as possible to help Stannis?
I think he's going for the Last Man Standing award. He's
Okay.
knocking everybody down, and he will be the last one left, and therefore be the one in charge.
Okay.
And you can read a little into it from his Chaos as a Ladder speech, and then also when he was trying to explain what was going on with the Boltons and Stannis. His goals are always kind of opaque, both in the book and in the show. But if you have to interpret it, I would say he wants to sow as much chaos and discord and disharmony everywhere as much as he can, while he is the one who knows what's really going on. And either he winds up on top, or he winds up in the best position of power from everything that's remaining. And we still don't exactly know what that long-term strategy is, because he plays things so close to the vest, and much hasn't been revealed to the audience either.
Yeah, think about how he's dealing with the Queen of Thorns, right? So say that somehow Marjorie gets reinstated, he still has leverage over her. He clearly is positioning himself to help Stannis or Roose Bolton, depending on who wins that fight. So to me, he is doing what Shannon said, which he's trying to create the optimal outcome no matter which way the cards fall for himself. And he will be the one that somebody leans on for money, for troops, for guidance, for secrets. So he's kind of the guy who, you walk up to on the street and he's got a coat full of everything, for depending on who walks up to him.
Yeah, and even if it's not him that wins, whoever wins is weakened so that he has something they need.
Yeah, and he's always positioning himself so whatever he's helping do is also, increasing his power and influence. So I don't know that he thinks he has a shot to actually sit on the Iron Throne, but he definitely wants to drive whoever is sitting there.
In most of those cases, he's not seen, even to the people he's undermining, he is not seen by them as the one who is bringing about their troubles. He's bringing, this person told me this, and this is how you get this information. So even if he's actively undermining somebody, they would still view him as an ally or a potential source of help. That part is really cunning.
Yeah, and I even loved how he acknowledged that the gift he was giving Olenna was the gift he previously gave Cersei of Lancel. Because I'm sure he told her, we'll get Lancel to poison Robert out in the woods, or, something to that effect to point her in that direction.
Oh, I think he actually was talking about giving Olivar as a witness against Loris. I
Right,
mean,
and
that
Olivar
he was
worked
his
in his
employee. Yeah.
yeah, he worked in that brothel.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so and that answers the question that we had a couple of weeks ago in our podcast about what exactly was so important that Cersei was bringing him back. And it was to obtain that information from Oliver's spying on her behalf via Littlefinger. So, because she was getting fed up and at her wits' end, and she needed a way to really put the screws to Marjorie. And she could only do that with Oliver, who was provided to her by Littlefinger. So that kind of closed that loop that we were wondering about.
Now, my only confusion is about Lancel's part in all of this. If he is true to the faith now, as he says he is, and as the High Sparrow says he is, wouldn't he have already provided this information before? And if not, what sort of pressure could have been put on him now to provide that sort of information? I mean, isn't he supposed to be above bribery?
Well, we're missing the timeline of did he do that at Peter's behest, or did he turn over a new leaf, confess some things, and then Peter got him to confess the rest? You know, we didn't see how that played out. And if you wanted to poke holes in it, you probably could. Or if you wanted to assume some things, you probably could lay out a timeline where he went to the High Sparrow, he repented, he confessed some sins. Then Littlefinger said, "Hey, we need you to do this," and then he said, "Father, forgive me. I've confessed and I made more sins," and then it played out that way. But yeah, it's probably best if we don't ask too many questions.
Well, so my explanation is that he necessarily wasn't working directly with the High Sparrow. He could have been working with other members of this priesthood sect, and so therefore things may have not bubbled up all the way to the High Sparrow. And so then when that happened, because he talked about there was a young man, and we slowly took away all the stuff and glitter and got down to this actual person. So that's my hand wave, is how that happened.
Or he could have said, his confession was, I had relations with a married woman, or I had relations with a close relative, or I played a small part in the death of her husband, without saying, oh, it happens to be the king and the queen.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways that they could have peeled back the layers to get to Cersei, which he probably didn't confess in the beginning. So I don't know if I would even call it hand waving. I think there's enough that's plausible to me that I wouldn't call it hand waving. There's some other stuff that wasn't plausible to me in this episode, though, so I want to pivot to our disappointments really quickly. The Dorne stuff didn't make any sense to me at all. It's like, why would you poison a guy and then give him the antidote? I didn't understand what she was trying to do in that scene. The Sand Snake who did it. It made no sense to me. And the meeting between Jamie and Marcella was like, why was that even there? There just wasn't enough meat on the bone for me about what was going on in Dorne this week.
Jamie talking to his niece/daughter was on my list as well. It just and maybe because she sounded so much like Sansa, a young Sansa, but I just that was kind of not needed. I guess they wanted to establish that Bronn's in jail and Jamie's being treated like at least in theory, as a visiting dignitary. I had no problem. In fact, Bronn singing and the payoff on the poison was one of my highlights, because I liked, that we had talked about, I wonder if it is a poisoned, and I believe that the sand snake that we talked about, she liked how he sang, and that was enough for her to not kill him. There is no advantage to it.
So the Dornish are crazy.
Yes, the Dornish are crazy.
I think the Dornish are exactly what Bronn said they were. They're all about fighting and effing.
Yes.
to put it the way he did.
And he was handsome, and he sang well, and so she and he was able to say, yes, you're very beautiful. And I think that she was amused by his well, you're not the prettiest woman I've seen, and all of a sudden, in just the way manipulating it, it was fun for her. I did think
But
he was going to die, though. I really thought, I said, this is how we're going to lose Braun, and I am so sad that one of my favorite characters is going to be off the show. Anyone else?
I am happy that Braun's still on there. Maybe we'll hear him sing again.
Yes. Did you think he was
Um,
going to die?
I was on the line. I
Okay.
really wasn't sure. And I was happy that the antidote was actually antidote because he did appear to get better after drinking it. But aside from Braun singing and seeing that there are other places in Dorne beside the water gardens outside, it did seem like the Dorne scenes were kind of pointless. It's like, okay, Marcella wants to be here, and the people who were going to kill her are now in jail. Okay, mission accomplished. Let's go home. Maybe this is going to be another grayscale conversation or the Dorn-shaped birthmark. Maybe it will pay off later on, but right now it's at that why are we watching this point.
Yeah, I was there too with the Dorne scenes, and like we said, there were good things. Bronn lives, Bronn sings. Now I even understand the logic of the seduction attempt because she's using her sexuality as a weapon. There's another Martell in the books that's famous for doing that. And so they're kind of grafting a little bit of that attribute onto her. And then the idea of, the seduction makes his blood pump faster, which increases the effects and the efficacy of the poison. So I understand the logic of it. It was just like, why? And why did we devote so much time to it? So, whatever. Yeah, I'm just the Dorn stuff is still leaving me flat, which is such a disappointment.
Okay, Jesse, what do you got?
I have the Boy King throwing a fit. I understand they had to age Tommen, and I've understood this from people. Since I haven't read the books, that he's older in this series than he is in the books because the sex stuff would have been pretty creepy. But he looks like a teenager, and him throwing a fit that I'm the king and I can't do anything was just a little bit irritating. I mean, I guess in seeing Cersei, manipulating him and talking about, well, you can't go as the king, well, I'll go for you. And you're just like, God, you're an idiot. Why are you trusting her? But she's his mom, so I guess he has to. But that was in an episode that I loved overall. Jaime talking to his niece daughter and the Boy King throwing a fit were the two things that I was disappointed in.
Well, I still expect Tommen to throw fits like that. He may look older, but I peg him at maybe 13 tops. And if you want another comparison, I always think of Harry Potter in the 5th book. The big fans of Harry Potter always refer to him as all caps Harry because he's always throwing a big fit. He's screaming about stupid things. This is what kids do. I mean, they're at the age of hormones and they don't think rationally. And he certainly has no reason to not trust his mother. That's his mother, and all she's ever talked about is wanting to make him happy. So he's never really seen what she's really like. She puts on a totally different face for him. I don't like watching it. I certainly don't enjoy those scenes where Tommen's being a little kid and being stupid, but I don't fault him for that.
Yeah, and also Lena Headey was so good in that scene because you could see, yes, she's lying to him and manipulating him, but there was also a lot of sincerity in her performance from Cersei's perspective that she really does love her 2 kids and she mourns the loss of her son. And, so there was a lot of nuanced acting in that, but Tommen's behavior was a little Dawn Summers for me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. He's a 12 or 13-year-old kid. I did like that he actually cared about what happened to Marjorie, and he finally is like, I think I'm ready to start a war for her. And I loved Cersei's expression when he said that.
Oh, and she totally told the truth about that. You know who's going to be the first one to die in that war.
Yeah, that was a great threat.
Yeah.
That's actually true too. They really are making her the Helen of Troy somewhat. But yeah, that wasn't as disappointing to me because at least it made sense in the context of events that we would have a scene with her talking to him, and especially in light of where she's going to end up by the end of the episode. She's sincere, though, when she's telling him, I will do all of this for my children. She's truly sincere. I thought Lena Headey did a great job because she's lying through her teeth and incredibly manipulative, but she thinks that it's all worth it because she is protecting her child.
The question is he now going to start that war because both of the women he cares about are being imprisoned? Or will he heed her advice on that and remember who's the first person to get killed in that war? And do we think Littlefinger's going to step in and start advising him?
Yeah, who does he have as a senior advisor at this point? With Mace Tyrell off in Bravos and Kevin Lannister back at Casterly Rock and Jaime and Dorne and mom and wife in prison?
A couple of maesters that totally disagree with each other on every point.
Yeah, one that's kind of discredited and one that's building a monster in the basement.
Okay, Christine, what do you got for disappointments?
For me, most of this season, my disappointments have really just been nitpicks. Like the ghost scene, he just kind of disappears, no pun intended, when the Watchmen run off. I don't know if he chased after them or if he went back to where he went. I mean, he just kind of isn't in the room anymore, and I have no idea where he went. And stuff like that just kind of bugs me, losing track of people in the room. So that could have been done a little bit better. I mean, I know wolves are a little more expensive than actors, but they are actually filming wolves and not making CGI wolves, so it shouldn't be too much of an effort to have the wolf walk out of the room for us. And also, I was a little confused in the Sansa Ramsay scene about how they found that particular woman as being the one who delivered the message to her about the candle. I mean, sure, maybe they could have reasoned it out, but I just, one sentence from Ramsay to explain how they knew it was her would have been helpful for me. But really, just nitpicks.
Yeah, you could do a whole web series around Where's My Direwolf, to track where those guys are. And then not a criticism per se, but just a question. How did you think they edited the scene after the Sansa Theon scene where he's walking deliberately with purpose? Because I had to watch that twice to kind of get the gist of it, but it's still not clear. Did he go straight to Ramsay, or did he go to the tower with the intent of putting the candle there and find Ramsay there and then confess? I don't think the editing made it clear, and maybe it was intentional to kind of get our hopes up and then dash our hopes when Ramsay was in on it.
I believe he walked straight to Ramsay, but the camera gave us a nice shot of this is where the broken tower is, and no, he's not walking in that direction.
And this is Brienne looking at the tower from a distance too.
Yes.
It was deliberately edited for us to think, because he's going up a spiral staircase, so you think he's in the tower at that point.
So he was the way that you guys take it, he was never going with the candle. He was never going anywhere but straight to Ramsay.
Yes, I don't think he ever was.
Yeah, I mean, I was buying in that he was actually going to do this, but no, it looks very clearly he was going to his guy.
Which makes sense. I mean, this is a person who is just destroyed. So It's going to take a little bit more, unfortunately, if at all, that Sansa can convince him to help her. But I'm also thinking that she's starting to realize she's got to take more drastic measures to get herself out of here. Because
Yeah, just to call back to that really long article that we have linked in the show notes. This show is very big on disillusioning people from the cliches of fantasy, that tragedy is going to be stopped at the last minute by someone becoming a hero and stepping in. Theon's not that hero. He's beaten down, and I'm not even sure he's ever going to be that hero. I mean, if we look back to Theon in late season 1 or season 2, we would never have expected that of him then, so why should we now?
And if one of the criticisms of the previous episodes, Ramsay Sansa's scene was, by focusing on Theon's face at the end, then you're using something horrific happening to Sansa to, empower Theon and spur him to action. Well, then this episode dramatically undercut it because it just said, well, and even her personal appeal to him and calling him by his name in this episode didn't motivate him to do the right thing and become a hero. It just kept him terrified. And like you said, made her realize I'm going to grab this little tool and whatever, and sisters got to do it for themselves,
Well, I mean, I don't think that we're expecting Theon to turn into a hero, but at least he can turn into an ally. And the reason why I think that is because he had true remorse about what he did right before he got taken off to be flayed and tortured endlessly. He's outside the door confessing that he made a horrible mistake in how he hurt the Starks, and she's a Stark. So I'm hoping that she'll be able to push that button possibly of you owe me, you owe my family.
Yeah.
And
I was just thinking 1-to-1 from the scene like that, we show something terrible happen to Sansa and it's all about Theon when in reality, that scene wasn't about that.
Yeah, I don't agree that scene was all about motivating Theon. I think it was just, he was a witness to what was happening. But I did hope, and we talked about this, that it would spark him to, get his head out of his misery, if it's even possible to do that, given what happens to people after they've been tortured like that. So let's move on to Shannon. Any disappointments?
We've talked about the ones that I had already. So my only other nitpick would be although I love to hear Tyrion throw down some game and talk his way out of situations, I thought how he got, sold to go along with Jorah was a little bit of a stretch, but when it's Dinklage doing something, you just kind of go along with it. But again, that's probably nitpicking.
Yeah, I felt that the guy who bought him maybe had another motivation there, but I'm not sure we're going to get a chance to see it, since now that now they're already in the presence of Daenerys and she's going to take them away from him right away, especially since he has the pretense that they're not his slaves, that they're free men. So I wonder if there was something else going on with that guy. He had this look on his face that suggested there was more to it, but I don't think we'll ever find out.
So now I just want to wrap up with any last thoughts, questions for discussion. My other disappointment was no Arya this week. And not that much Jon Snow, but hopefully next week all shall be righted in that direction.
Like I said, I thought it was a really good episode. I was very happy to kind of see where we're going. And, once again, I'm a little part of me sad because, we're on the downside of episodes already. Just this thing, we just rip through them so quickly.
3 more.
Yeah, 3 more, 2 more to the big episode. I wonder what it's going to be this season.
Well, I have one other question before we go.
Yes.
Is Stannis going to, what's he going to do if Melisandre actually sacrifices Shireen? Or what's our odds on Shireen making it as not a sacrifice?
So that's a great question. Now, he can't just, because he asked about, can't we do the leeches again or something? And she's like, no, we need the blood. So I just, you ask the question, how bad do you want to be king? How bad do you want to reach this goal? And I think they've established he loves his daughter. And gosh, now once again, I'm gonna get just smashed by this show. But you're going, anyone who would go that lengths doesn't deserve to be king, and so I just don't think he's gonna go that way. I hope not, anyway.
Well, I'm still clinging on to my theory that she's not actually his daughter, and the only person who knows that is Celise. But that's just me. And I think maybe it's possible that Shannon could clear that up for me, but I know he won't because we promised no spoilers. And
I won't, and I'll tell you that I can't because we don't know.
Aha! So it hasn't gotten to that point yet. Good. I don't think he'll do it. I think Melisandre might actually try to do it despite his disapproval, and I think there's going to be a break between them because of that.
And Celise would be right there with kindling and a Zippo.
Hell yeah.
I'm thinking she's going to go talk to her next.
Well, and if you follow the language of the show, and I had to place a bet, I would say that I think he would, because what is the story between them this year? It's been that she's a sweet little thing, and he's gone to the ends of the earth to protect her and cure her grayscale when she was a child, and it's shown a different dimension and kind of humanized him and really played up the importance of that relationship. And what happens when we see a loving relationship on Game of Thrones?
Oh, it's over.
That's why I would lean towards
but if he's the one, right? If he's the one who's got to save Westeros from all these threats, he might be convincible that he has to make this sacrifice in order to do his, quest.
Right, which would be heartbreaking and tragic.
Hopefully Davos will intervene.
Yeah, I hope
Davos
so.
wouldn't let that happen if he has any say in it whatsoever. But again, it's setting up a interesting pressure point for Stannis, because if they get to Winterfell or almost all the way to Winterfell and the snow keeps coming and more forces desert on them,
he would definitely have to be pushed to a breaking point on that. I mean, I want to say that he would never, ever do anything to harm her, but I think he's the type of person that when pushed to the limit, he will change his mind.
And I do love the fact that they set up, we're seeing more snow. We're seeing that winter is making its way south. And
they remind us about the dragon glass because Sam gave John some, little things.
And I thought, I kind of was irritated at Theon, we of the North, which I guess they are the North, but the Starks of the North. But, and his point about, wherever we winter, we're going to be stuck there. And who knows how long this winter will last and, how many years. And so I think they could be putting themselves in a really tough dilemma that, I hope not, but God, this show will continue to go that dark, right? But I think you guys are right. He may have to make that choice.
And I think that's a great place to wrap up this episode on a cliffhanger. What will happen next? And we'll find out. Before we go, I want to encourage everyone to join in on the Small Council contest and share your thoughts in a very brief audio comment to us. And I want to thank everyone for listening and thank our Small Council who is here, Jesse, Christine, and Shannon, as well as Lou and Kelly, who haven't been able to be here. But hopefully we'll all be together again soon.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening. Talk to you later.
We love to get your feedback. Call us at 206-202-4182 or leave us a Skype voicemail to our Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV name. We have many ways to keep the discussion going on our blog. Drop by tuningintoscifitv.com and leave a comment. On the blog, you'll also find links to the forum discussions and other links to follow our Twitter and RSS feeds and find our Facebook account.
Listen to Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV on Stitcher Radio On Demand. Download the free app today at Stitcher.com. You've been listening to a Game